I want you to define successful cover art like this. The purpose of cover art is to get your target audience one step closer to subscribing to your show. I believe we're recording, so let's go with it. Let's get into this crap. It's my handy notes. What's about to come out of my face is going to be absolute liquid gold. So, at this point in your B2B podcasting journey, you are finally ready to tackle cover art.
Yeah, baby!
And it's something that really becomes very recognizable. When people think of your show, they're going to see in their mind's eye a picture of your cover art. So no pressure, but it's kind of a big deal. Artwork for the podcast is usually like the first thing a customer wants to see. So we have a tendency to be super zealous, maybe a little bit overzealous whenever it comes to starting on cover art.
You over-eager son of a...
There are a few questions we have to ask ourselves before we can really dive into this. I need more coffee today. Yesterday I did this and I was like way over caffeinated. Distracted. Woo-hoo. Okay. Cover art is the artwork that is featured in accordance with your show. So it's what shows up on all the podcast apps. Here is how we want to think about cover art. So the messaging has to be super simple. Messaging needs to be clear and focused and concise. And there are a few other ways that we can go about getting from point A to point B. But the purpose of cover art is to get your target audience one step closer to subscribing to your show. There are a few other things that it can do. We obviously want the cover art to identify your show. What else do we want it to do? It tells us who you are. It features a couple of attributes that help us get to know the personality or the voice of the podcast. I want you to picture yourself in a bookstore, and there is a book that catches your eye. You walk up to the book, you pick it up, you look at the title, you look at the imagery, you're intrigued by what this book could possibly be about, you take a look at the author, maybe you flip it over, check out the spine, you look at the reviews on the back, you see who invested time and is willing to advocate for this literature.
This is my throne of books.
Then the next thing you might do, if you're continuing to be intrigued by the reviews and all that good stuff, is you open it up and you take a look at the little miniature summary on the inside left panel. You flip through the book, and then you want to take a look at about the author on the back. That is a book cover. Cover art is somewhere between a profile photo on social media and a book cover. The only portion of a physical book cover that truly is parallel to cover art is that millisecond in the very beginning of you laying eyes on the book cover where it captures your attention.
I was drunk, vulnerable, and good-looking, and you took advantage.
Okay. For some reason, is it the colors? Is it the title of the book? We don't know. Maybe it's the imagery. There are a bunch of different things that can grab your target audience's attention with your cover art, and there are a bunch of different reasons why books capture our attention when we see the cover. It is a myth. Nobody can not judge a book by its cover. If you fall in love with the contents of a book, you can overlook the cover then. But nobody can not judge a book by its cover.
And I mean no one.
The average person is absolutely going to judge a book by its cover, just like they're going to judge a podcast by its cover art. It's not something that is typical for us to overlook naturally in the beginning. The point of your cover art is to make a statement, just a gentle kicking. The likelihood of someone giving your podcast a chance, even if your cover art is trash, is just pretty slim.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
You know that your cover art is successful if it gets your target audience one step closer to subscribing to your show. It's not the most important thing about your show, but it's up there. So there's cat hair in here. Am I overexposed? The sun just came out and now got all bright and it jacked up my whole light balance. So if there's some kind of filter you can do. So we want to make sure that we put it into perspective. The cover art is a step in a staircase. It is not supposed to carry all of the weight. What you want to do is you want to keep it simple. Cover art should communicate a couple of key things. The first thing is what's the name of the show? And the second thing is it should show some sort of attribute that gives the audience a hint toward what the contents of the show is actually going to be, or you can play up some personality. What are some key components to the show? What makes it unique? Is it's super casual and conversational? Are you talking about an industry that doesn't really get a lot of airtime? Is there something that you could put in the cover art that would show your target audience a glimpse of who you are and what you're wanting to do with this content? But it is going to be very diluted messaging if you try to include all of those things.
3 darts is too much!
It's really common for us to have cover art, imagery, and a company logo. It's called visual hierarchy. So your cover art should feature the name of your show most prominently. The secondary information there is going to be the supporting imagery. Maybe those two things integrate. That's awesome. But your company's logo should not be the primary or even the secondary most important, most bold, large, prominent information on the cover art.
Jeff, oversize that. It's funny.
Cover art has to be scalable. It's going to be featured most often at a size of about 50 by 50 pixels, which is tiny. And it's going to go all the way up to 3000 by 3000 pixels. So if your cover art only works when it's really large, just know your cover art doesn't work. I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but just to put those dimensions into perspective for you, the video that you're watching right now was shot in 1920 by 1080. A video on Instagram that shows up as a square on your phone is 1080 by 1080. You're really not going to see your podcast cover art any larger than that anywhere.
Oh my God!
Your cover art is going to be seen at about 50 by 50 pixels, which is a teeny tiny little thumbnail, all the way up to 3000 by 3000. But it's really not common for us to see cover art any larger than 1080 by 1080. And just to put that into perspective, as you're scrolling through Instagram and you're looking at the square videos, those are 1080 by 1080. So it's about the size of a square on a phone screen. So with that in mind, the design that you put on your cover art has to be scalable. If it doesn't work at 50 by 50, it doesn't work. If it doesn't work at 3000 by 3000, it doesn't work.
What kind of stupid, short-sighted, irresponsible bull? Whoa!
You need clear, crisp imagery. You want no pixelation at 3000 by 3000. You don't have any resolution issues. Everything is crispy and clear and nice. I feel a little bit like I'm being tased. Is that what I look like? If you're struggling to decide on imagery to support your show's title to be featured in your cover art, you may need to ask yourself a couple questions. First of all, do you have to stick rigidly to the brand guidelines? Or is this something that you could kind of branch out on? Play up maybe one or two attributes from your brand guidelines, but you can add a little bit more flair and personality to what you corporately would use in a marketing campaign.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
There's a unique opportunity with a podcast that is featured by a company to add a little bit of flair, play up some of the host's personality, maybe dive into some aspects that make the content you're covering a little bit more human. And we want to take advantage of that if possible in the cover art. It may be helpful for you to create a mood board.
Everything just sort of pops out at you.
The mood board is just a collection of images that helps you gather ideas to determine what visual direction you want to go with the show. So it could be anything from who would be your ideal celebrity guest? What kind of personality do they have? Why would you choose that person? Mine would probably be Arnold Schwarzenegger with his stogie talking about bodybuilding. I don't know why, that's just what came to mind. So whoever that is, whatever that communicates to you, that little attribute, that personality that you really want to shine through with this content represents more to you. It could literally be chips and salsa. I don't know, maybe that's your vibe. Maybe you want people to feel like this is so valuable that it's just like free chips and salsa at a good Mexican food restaurant, because all the good ones have free chips and salsa. Is it okay that my hair keeps changing? I'm a fiddler. I fiddle with stuff. I keep doing that. Is that okay? It's just a collection of images that inspire your show. could be something that visually is compelling. Maybe it's a design that you want to feature some of the elements of. Maybe you're intrigued by the color scheme and it's something that you want to feature on the cover art. It's a whole identity. So the cover art is just one portion of the show's overall identity. We want all of the different components of the podcast to work together to cohesively create one identity. You want your target audience to get from cover art to one step closer to subscribing to your show. That one step may be just clicking on the cover art and seeing what are the episodes that are available. I'm going to scroll through, I'm going to just give it another little glance. And it could be actually checking out some reviews. It could be listening to a few seconds of the podcast, millisecond of a glance, which is all you get. It's the first impression. It is a big deal, but it doesn't have to communicate everything. Cover art should be simple. Every single element that you add to the cover art is going to take away from an element that's already there. So because you are sharing this real estate with at least 3 components, you want to make sure that you don't have anything extra in there. You don't want to split the attention from what your main controlling idea is. Here is the main focused messaging. This is the name of the show. Here is the supporting imagery. And this is the company that is putting this thing on. You want those things in that order. So if you add a tagline, if you want to add a headshot in addition to the imagery, or any other little thing that pulls attention away from your main message, you're going to dilute your main message. So the more words you have, the weaker the cover art is going to be. Now there are some exceptions to this.
How's it working out for you? What? Being clever?
But just in general, you want to keep things super simple and super clear and try to be clever if you can. Have fun with it. If you can work with a professional designer, that's the way to go. If you have a design department, yep, those are going to be your people.
Tales of your incompetence do not interest me.
We'll also include a downloadable template for you to be able to create your own cover art in a vector platform. So using something like Illustrator or Canva or Photoshop. Use whatever tools you have available to you. All you have to do is drop in your design, and I'll put some notes in there so that you guys know exactly how to use it. Now I'm getting all dry mouth. I'm getting parched. As you scroll through the different shows in a podcast app, cover art is what makes that first impression. You get 1 millisecond to capture the attention of your target audience with your cover art when they're scrolling through a podcast player.
Nobody knows that they saw it, but they did.
So don't waste it. Make something awesome. Don't try to over-communicate it. Keep it simple. I've talked about a lot of stuff today, but I think the main thing we've talked about is to keep it simple. How do we define successful cover art? If it gets your audience one step closer to subscribing to your show. It's my chair. I can do it on command. It's my chair, so don't be starting any rumors or adding any additional sound effects to make it sound like it's not my chair. I got so nervous it gave me the coronis. Man, got my chapstick. You've never had too much chapstick.